2 o'clock. Welcome. My name is Greg Leffelin. I'm president of the board here. We are the only housing co-op in the state of South Dakota. So if you have any questions about what that means, ask somebody who's beside you because they probably live here and they can tell you. We do a series of things we call the Village Forum. We do the Village Roundtable. We believe in civil discourse and intellectual curiosity. And I personally am smart enough to not do interviews myself, but get South Dakota's best, solely best interview to come and do them. So I'm going to turn it over to my friend Jack Marshall. He's going to
Welcome, everyone. I don't think I can live up to this guy's expectations, but it's a privilege for me to be invited by Greg and by the fellow owners here at the Village Cooperative to lead this discussion. Now, aren't we the fortunate ones in the city of Sioux Falls that this is just one choice for mayor? We've got 5 people that we can choose from, and through these forums, we really get to know them. And we're going to spend well over an hour today with Christine Erickson, finding out what makes her tick, what are her ideas, what's her vision for the city of Sioux Falls. How many of you were here last week? All right, so we have just a few new folks. So let me explain the format here. Christine and I are going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask the questions, she's going to provide the answers, and then we'll go for probably about 50 minutes. And then we want to take your questions. Everybody at your place, you have a pencil and you have a note card. Just jot down your questions. I would recommend you don't write down your questions yet. See how the conversation is going. If I don't hit on the topic that you're curious about, write down your question, then we'll collect those. Greg will pass them up to me, and we'll try to get through as many of your questions as possible. Thanks again to the Village Cooperative for sponsoring this. Thanks to Greg for coming up with this idea. This is civil discourse. This is doing our duty as citizens to be well-informed voters. And so we thank Christine Erickson for subjecting herself to my questions and grilling. But we're especially pleased that so many of you came out to watch this and listen to this exchange. And we also have a live audience on Facebook, and this will be recorded and archived as well, so you can go back and review it later on. I am told that the first time we're going to be able to see sample ballots in Minnehaha and Lincoln counties is going to be this Friday, April 17th. There are a ton of combinations between these 2 counties because of all the different jurisdictions. We have elections, we have primaries, but as of Friday, you can go online, I believe, through the South Dakota Secretary of State's office, and you can actually review a sample ballot for your residents. And if you so choose, you can then request your absentee ballot, or I assume you can also show up at the courthouse, Minnehaha or Lincoln counties. And we're now in Lincoln County, but probably several of you are also from Minnehaha. So let's kick this off. Tell us the personal story, your upbringing, your education, your career, but also tell us about your public service so far. Christine?
So thank you all for being here and being engaged in what is really a really important election of shaping the next 8 years of Sioux Falls. So my name is Christine Erickson, running for Sioux Falls mayor. So I grew up in Rapid City, South Dakota, West River girl, 3 brothers, a farm girl mom, and an Italian father who served in the Army. My parents growing up, I will tell you, we didn't have a lot, but we had just enough. And I would say that's a lot of people today feel that same way. And so one of the most valuable things my father taught me was the gift of time, the resource of time, being able to serve others. And so growing up, I watched my mom and dad do that. We played sports. We were active in our school, our church. I ended up going to National American University, played soccer for 2 years there, and got hurt playing soccer. So I graduated with a 2-year associate's degree, eventually moved to Pierre, South Dakota, and worked for the State Department of Revenue. I don't always tell everybody that, it's not always super popular, but I was young, fresh out of college, and hungry for change. And so when I started in that role, I had an incredible boss who really truly believed in me. Tiana Zabel is her name, and hired me, took a chance. I had 10 counties that I oversaw, north and south, working for the Department of Revenue. And I changed the mentality and truly that service mentality that my father taught me, thinking, okay, as I'm teaching people about business, if they're making money, they're paying their taxes on time, they're staying out of trouble, sure makes my job a lot easier to be able to do that. And so lived in Pierre for a handful of years, ultimately wanted to get back to school, so I moved to Sioux Falls. And so I like to say, while I wasn't born here, I've chosen Sioux Falls to be my home. I've chosen to go to college here. I've chosen to raise my family here. And I've chosen to start a business as well as serve in public office. So I continued to work for a bank here in Sioux Falls for a couple of years, went back to the Department of Revenue, and then went into entrepreneurship, started my own business, working in some real estate. We did the traditional rental thing for a while, and then we saw a workforce need in Sioux Falls that was really unique. We saw that workforce needed a place beyond maybe a hotel or an extended stay hotel, and so we built relationships nationwide with traveling nurse recruiters, and we started reaching out to the hospitals, and we did short-term corporate housing, which was extremely, we were really successful in growing our business with that. During that time, I started to feel a little uneasy in politics and wasn't super thrilled with what was going on. There was a redistricting in my district, and so I chose to run for the state legislature. And so during that time, I was one of, I want to say 13 women in the legislature, and I was one of the—
You were in the House of Representatives.
Correct, House of Representatives, West Side Sioux Falls, District 11, little district over there, representing 24,000 people. And so I went into that role while running my business at the same time, and really valued that service and how important it was. But I quickly realized how important it was to be at the local level. I use the example, we voted on pine beetles, very important out west. We were funding to make sure we stopped the spread of the pine beetles. My district probably didn't give a rip about what was going on in that time, and so I wanted to really find where I could serve at more of a local level. And all politics is really local, especially when you look at the county commission, when you look at the school board, and you look at city council. And so I ran at large for 8 years, did that.
In the city council.
In the city council.
So you left the state legislature,
Yep.
served 8 years
Yep.
on the city council.
Yep. I did that, and then so the last 5 years I've served as the president of South Dakota Auto Dealers and Trucking Associations. And so
Which are separate.
they are two separate entities under the same building, house. I have 2 boards, and so we have wheels, so it's all the same. Essentially, we have a lot of the same issues, and so we are the cornerstone of all transportation and commerce in this state. So on the automotive side, I represent franchise dealers, so think of those legacy brands, Ford, GM, Mazda, all of those. Non-franchise, which are the used car dealers. Power sports, RVs, and semis.
So as a big part of your role is lobbying in Pierre?
It is, yes. I head to DC 3 or 4 times a year, and then I spend 2.5 months in Pierre, coming home on the weekends, January through mid-March, and get to represent the interests of the automotive. And then trucking is the guys and gals that are delivering our goods behind the wheel. Sometimes I like to share the story that, until COVID, truckers were not cool. You would be going down the road and you might see sleet and things spitting up. But until you couldn't get your groceries, and until you couldn't get toilet paper or hand wipes, we didn't really honor the trucking industry like we should have. We've just really taken it for granted. And so I came in at the height of a time where people really, really honored the trucking industry. We believe in a diverse transportation system, and we believe, boat, rail, all of that matters, but everything is touched by a trucker, that last mile.
Christine, before we delve into some of the issues
Yeah.
in the city of Sioux Falls and the mayor's office itself, tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I have 3 boys. They are...
What are their names and ages?
So Anthony is my oldest. He's 21. He goes to SDSU. He is studying entrepreneurial studies. He is so creative. He teaches me some things on the computer that makes me super efficient. And he's just really, really creative in that sense. So I'm excited to see where he goes with his education. My second is Braylon. He is 17. He is a junior at Jefferson. Big football player. My youngest, Charlie, who gives me a run for my money. He's a little spitfire. He is 15. He plays basketball and football. All 3 of my kids are just super fun to be around. It's an age where they're independent, and so when they want to choose to spend time with you, it's so rewarding just to have that relationship with them. And so it's been a fun parenting cycle.
You said that your public service was somewhat inspired by your father's
Yes.
example, right?
Yeah.
Tell us, why is it so important to you to seek the office of mayor of the city of Sioux Falls?
Yeah.
What really was the impetus for that?
Well, it's really about serving, right? It's really about giving back to a community that has given me so much. My family, a small business which I have since sold, and the career that I have. Sioux Falls is home. I love this place. This is home, and I want those same opportunities for my kids, your kids, your grandkids. And as well as a great place to retire. We are seeing more and more people retiring in place right here in Sioux Falls. And so those are really important things for me to be able to shape that future and that vision of what Sioux Falls could be as we continue to grow.
So what is the job of the mayor? What are the responsibilities of the mayor?
So the mayor really is the CEO of the city, I would say, operating within 10 departments. 10 directors report directly to the mayor, along with an incredible team of employees. And so the mayor's role is really to lead the city from a public safety standpoint, from economic development, really for the future of Sioux Falls, and making sure that we're on the right path. We've had some incredible leaders before us, and so for me, it's about taking that baton and continuing to lead into the future. One of the things that is really important to me, should we win this mayor's race, is really that collaboration with the city council. I bring a unique perspective of being a former legislator, a former city councilor, and how that collaboration could be better. We have 8 unique individual city councilors that ran truly to vote on more things than liquor licenses and rezones. And that's a lot of what the council does. For me, I want to find your sweet spot, Jack. If you're on the city council, I want to find out what's important to you. Quiet zones downtown. Is it affordable housing? Is it public safety and recidivism? I want to find the sweet spot of each of those city councilors and really empower them to be a change agent for their district and for the city as well. It's important for me as a leader to not always be out front, to be that steady hand, but also to find people that want to do good and push them to the front.
Christine, regardless of who wins the mayor's race, what are the essential qualifications, the essential experiences that go into a successful mayor?
Yes. Well, I would say my resume really
I'm not necessarily
about
talking about
me.
you.
Okay.
I'm saying regardless of who's elected,
Yeah.
what do you think are the essential qualifications
Yes.
and experiences to prepare somebody for success
Yes.
as the mayor of Sioux Falls?
I think that it needs to be a leader, someone who's willing to have tough conversations, willing to make decisions and lead through not just the good times, but also the hard times. We've had some challenging years. So we need a leader that has that steady hand. We need a collaborative leader, someone that's willing to work with our state legislature, our governor, our federal delegation, because it's so collaborative in nature. I think that that person needs to be able to build a team. And that team should look really For me, that team would look really different. I know you said don't talk about what I would do, but I'm going to work it in there. That team would look really different for me. I surround myself with people that think differently than me and people that think similar to me. And that's where I build that team effort of making sure that change is happening in an appropriate way, that different mindsets are being considered, evaluated, and heard.
Christine, let's talk about character.
Yeah.
Are there certain guidelines, are there certain things that make up your own personal moral code, your core values? What can you name 6 to 10 of these core values that guide you and have guided you up to now?
Well, I think it's about integrity, honesty. It's about being open. It's about being collaborative. You're going to hear me say that word to a nauseam today. And it's really being accessible. I've never been too good for something. I've never been one that isn't willing to do the work. And so I think those are some of those key things that have guided me, with really service being at the forefront. But one other key aspect I would add to that that's a little bit different and maybe a little bit surprising is having accountability and feedback. If you can't be held accountable and if you're not willing to take feedback, I don't think this is the job for you, because I'm sure all of us could probably agree on the 80-20 rule, right? But are we going to hang our hat on the things that we don't agree on, or are we going to find those things that we can work on and move forward? And so having people be willing and allow you to hold me accountable and to give me feedback, I think is really important. And that's what shaped me and helped me be successful in my career up to this point.
Christine, has there been a time in your life when your integrity has really been tested?
Yeah.
How did you handle that? What did you learn?
Yeah. I mean, I could probably give you a list of 10 or 15, to be honest. You know, I will give you an example when I was in the legislature, and you're only as good as your word in the legislature, and I was the elected person at this time, and a particular lobbyist had come to me and said, hey, we don't care, we're not gonna fight this issue anymore, we're out. And I said, great, thank you. We shook on it, and I later that afternoon got an email that this particular person had gone behind the back and started to try to kill my bill. And I was so disappointed and frustrated. But the only way that I knew how to handle that was to go to that person. It would have been easy to stand up to my colleagues and say, so-and-so is a bad, and I'm not going to tell you who it is because it doesn't matter, but so-and-so is a bad person and you shouldn't work with him, and this is why. It could have crushed his career, it could have crushed his work. And so what I chose to do is I went to that person and I said, hey, here's the deal, like why, you know, and I gave that forgiveness and grace, which I think is really, really important. But it was tempting to stand up and say, can you believe what he just did to me? Don't trust him. And I just felt that giving a second chance was important in that sense.
How big a role have mentors played in your life?
Huge. Huge.
Who have been the key mentors, the key role models who guided you? You already.
Yeah. My father, of course, and my mom. My mom is, she's tough as nails. She's great. So family, of course.
Okay. Can you name some other individuals?
Yeah.
Maybe even some people we know.
Yeah. I like to keep it locally. There's people that I admire that have done a lot of great work throughout our country, past and present. Someone I would say that I've admired greatly is former Governor Dennis Dugard. He served at a time where there was major budget constraints.
Has he been a personal mentor to you?
We have met from time to time, but I think I've admired his public service and what he's done.
Okay, I'm going to say that quick. Say that
sure,
just a little bit.
Sure.
But I'd like you to call out, you know, there are some real mentors who've guided you.
So Mark Mickelson would be one. We served in the legislature together, and he taught me a lot of things on how to think differently, how to color outside the lines, and that there's more than one way to accomplish something. And so we've continued to keep in touch, and we continue to meet. I will say there's some women in my life. Each one, I would say, comes in different times, right? That I think that a mentorship is during that time. I had some incredible women in my life when I was in the legislature. I was pretty young, pretty green. I would have to make sure they knew, hey, make sure I can second something so my name shows up in the role. And so some of those women that we would get together, we would talk the entire way to peer.
Give us a name.
Ann Hayek is one, she's here today. Deb Solholt is another one. And they invested in me as that next generation leader. But things ebb and flow, right? That was that period of my time through that. They helped me remarkably when I ran for office and guided and challenged me throughout my time of public service, but also encouraging me when I did enter into the workforce 5 years ago, saying, hey, stop looking at all the things on this resume that you think you can't do, and find the things that you know you can do. You can learn automotive, you can learn trucking. So I entered into an industry I didn't know a lot about, but because I had the relationships and the skill set from previously, it has helped me be successful today.
Yeah, let's talk about the elements of leadership. Describe for us your own leadership philosophy and style, and how you think that will show up in practice. If you come on.
Yeah. So in my current role, and this would spill over into the next office. I'm very collaborative. I've never been one to say I have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers, but I do a pretty darn good job of surrounding myself with people and building great teams of people that can help move an issue or help shape a policy. When you lobby and peer, you have 105 unique personalities. And so to get a bill to the finish line is not always easy. It's about a 50-50 shot of getting your bill through. And so you have to be relational. You have to be respectful. You have to have great communication skills. But beyond the communication skills, it's also communication, collaboration, and making sure you're willing to take that back in. And so my leadership style really is one of building a solid team, sharing and motivating the vision, and moving whatever that item is or that particular project forward in doing that. And like I said, it's really all in collaboration.
So, as a leader, what's been your proudest accomplishment? Whether it was your time on the city council, your time on the state legislature, or your current role in running the truckers and auto dealers and so on.
Well, I'll give you a few examples. One, I'm a mom of 3 incredible boys. Nothing beats that, right? And to see them start turning into young adults and mostly making good decisions is important. And so that is key for me. It's really the thing that I thrive on the most is that constituent work. Giving that voice to someone who maybe didn't have a voice before. And so working on some projects during my time on city council to help people,
What are you proudest of from your 8 years on city council?
Yeah, so I'll give you a few examples. One of the things, there was a proposal that was going to take away free and reduced pool passes for qualifying people. And we fought really hard to keep that in place. I was a recipient of that growing up. I was one that rode my bike to the pool where my brothers worked as lifeguards. And that was enough to keep me out of trouble. It kept me active, all of that. And so it was really personal and important for me to fight for something like that. I have fought really hard for workforce development from the USD Discovery District and trying to get different industries here, as well as collaborating with city councilors to making sure that we have the workforce trained here in Sioux Falls at Southeast Tech. We continue to give them an appropriation each year, and we saw a great ROI on that. And so collaborating with other city councilors. One of the other items that maybe isn't super maybe it is important to some, maybe it isn't, but I received an email one day saying, I travel all over the place and I can't believe when I get off the plane, we don't have a ride share. We don't have an Uber or a Lyft. And I fired an email back to this person. I said, you know what, you're right. We should do this. And so I partnered with a random email I got. I showed up to his work, unexpected, and saying, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to do this. And it was about a 7 to 8 month process of walking through all the bureaucracy and red tape and going through, you know, a big company to later launch Lyft in South Dakota and Sioux Falls. And at the time, what seemed to be, you know, just kind of, yeah, we should do this. The excitement around that 20-something age was so cool. We hosted impromptu press conferences on the steps of City Hall. We took the first ride. And it's that quality of life that, you know, other cities have. And Lyft was so astonished with us. They were like, this is crazy. Like, we've never seen anybody so excited about this. They had a hashtag called Lift Off Sioux Falls. Instead of just launching in Sioux Falls, they launched in all of South Dakota. And so most of the time, people don't see all the work that was done behind the scenes, but it's that work that is really rewarding to partner alongside somebody else that has a better idea than you and helping get it to the finish line.
Christine, can you think of an example of a decision you made under significant pressure that was unpopular at the time, and what did you learn from that experience that you would apply?
I'll give you.
Maybe it's a Lyft experience.
Yeah, well,
because I recall there was initially quite a bit of resistance to that,
there was.
particularly from the cab.
Well, look, I served under COVID, during COVID. Nothing prepares you for grit and hustle and just problems. I had death threats during COVID. My kids couldn't walk to school. We had extra security.
How did you receive the death threats?
It was through Facebook. There was a Facebook, and it was crazy. It was just a couple weeks ago. I was going through some old stuff, and I had a screenshot of it, and I thought, oh, it was myself and Greg Neitzer were the ones that voted against the mask mandate. And the reason why we were voting against the mask mandate is we believed that the businesses should choose. So if you want to go to a big box store, and they tell you have to wear a mask, you better put the mask on or don't go in there. We felt that you should respect that business. And so that is where, and there was also some other really deeply personal reasons why I supported that, that I will choose to not go into. But during that time, there was a post that said, Greg Neitzer and Christine Erickson should be lined up and executed.
So how do you handle that kind of pressure?
We reported it to police. We chose to not press charges on that. But it was reported, and I believe in forgiveness and grace. I think everyone was doing the best they could with the information that was flying at us. We've never dealt with an issue like that in our country before, and I hope we don't ever have to deal with that. And so it was a very trying time. I was on the losing side of that. A mask mandate went into effect. And I stayed true to my conviction and ultimately that was released with the tie-breaking vote of the mayor. But it was ugly. It was a really ugly time behind closed doors with conversations. It tested relationships of the city council, with the mayor, with the state, and with our citizens. I mean, people were very angry at me. Some were really happy with me. But it was that balance of really staying true to my conviction of why I was voting the way I was, and leading through a time that was really uncharted. Another example I'll give you in the last 5 years. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
That was a pretty good one.
Okay.
Let's circle back to something you touched on very
Sure.
briefly, and that is your role models when it comes to public service,
Yeah.
even contemporary individuals. Maybe, and you already mentioned one name, but
Yeah.
tell us, as we try to understand what kind of mayor you might be, what kind of leader you might be, point us to, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is the kind of leader that I want to be. This is the kind of public servant I want to be, the kind of elected official I want to be.
So I'll go back to Dennis Dugard again, because he's just a great human being. He's a great leader. He's funny. He's relatable. He would sit and shake every single one of your hands if he were here today. He's just a really good person, but he's also a bold leader. He had to make some really tough decisions and looking at the school districts and saying, gotta cut your budget at 5% or whatever it was at that time. He had to come in and clean up a really, really troubling financial time. And so I admire his tenacity for doing that, but he did it respectful. He didn't take shots at people. He didn't pull anybody down. He worked with the legislature. He brought them in. He asked for their consultation. He wanted them to be a part of the process. And so I really admire that. You know, I look at a few others nationally that have done some things that, you know, broke some glass ceilings as a woman myself. Sioux Falls has never had a female mayor. Looking at Condoleezza Rice and some of the things that she's accomplished for herself has been, you know, fun to follow and watch, but not a huge impact, but just someone that has really, you know, pulled up that chair to the seat at the table and made some tough decisions along the way. There's a few other others.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, you touched on as a leader that you think you're good at building a team.
Yeah.
Well, the challenge of the next mayor is there already are some key members of that, the mayor's team that are leaving.
Yep.
Parks and Rec
Yep.
director is departing.
HR.
Our planning director is departing. How is Christine Erickson going to put together the best and brightest to serve in your administration?
I get so excited even thinking about this because it's something I thrive on. I was sharing earlier with one of the gals, if you haven't read this book or listened to this book, I'd encourage you to do so. It's called A Team of Rivals. It was asked of me to read. I don't always have the most time to read, but I travel to and from here, and so I actually listened to this book twice. My only regret listening to it while I drive is I couldn't write notes. Like, I'm a highlighter, I'm a note taker. And this book is all about building a team and surrounding yourself with people that don't just think like you. Imagine if you have someone who looks differently than you and thinks differently than you. And so having those people at the table are so important to me. They hold you accountable, they keep you honest, and you can challenge them back. Some of my best friends think very differently than I do, but we have come up with some really good products and things of change throughout my tenure. And so my leadership style will really be to, one, you know, to sit down with the 7 directors that are there. I've met with each of them twice, and many of them have communicated that they
How
would
many
like to
vacancies
stay.
will there be? Of the
3.
7? 3 of the 7.
3 of
Will
the
be
7.
changing.
Yes, and of the 7.
Plus you're going to have a new city council.
Plus a new city council, plus you need to build your own team first in your office. And so for me first, I would look at hiring that chief of staff, and what do I want my team? My team is the directors, right? But also you need your chief of staff, you need your communications person.
You know who those will be?
I have some ideas. I do.
Oh, I'm sure that was.
I would not. Sorry, no breaking news today. But I've had some people show interest in some of the directors' jobs, which I think is really interesting, and said, hey, I'd be really interested in this. And so it's really I think, you know, HR is pretty black and white, but it's a really, really important job because that's the person that goes into those labor contracts. And so you have to have a good, solid person in that. Parks and Rec also, I think there's some interest within the department, but I think it's also, if you don't cast a wide net, you don't know what you're missing. And so my idea for the planning and zoning director is really, really, really my #1 hire. That will have to.
Jeff Eckhoff is done in June,
Yes,
is that correct?
Yes, maybe end of May, but yeah, May, June. So that job is critically important as we look at development. Smithfield is leaving the downtown, and so what is that vision? What is the impact going to look like for the downtown and for the future of our city? how we continue to retain and keep businesses that are coming here, and how do we get other businesses that are already here to reinvest. A lot of times we look at the shiny balls that we want to bring in and we forget, oh, if somebody's bringing in 25 or 50 new employees, that's like recruiting a new company. And so we have to make sure we take care of those people. So that planning and zoning person is going to be so important. And so my at first blush, one of the things that I would want to do is have a city councilor, myself, probably, I don't want to say some names to put myself in a box, but another director, and then I'd like to also have one or two citizens that would be on a hiring committee for this. That is how important this job is. And man, I would hate to follow Joe back off. He's got big shoes to fill.
The city of Sioux Falls is big business. $775 million budget, 2,094 employees, both part-time and full-time. For each of, I believe this is correct, for each of the last 5 years, building permits at or above $1 billion. One year we got close to $2 billion. Now 225,000 residents, and by the end of the first term, 250,000 people residing in this city. Plus, the mayor of Sioux Falls is now an influential statewide leader, no question about it. Talk about your personal skill set in addition to your leadership abilities, and talk to us about your specific skill set when it comes to things like workforce management, the city's workforce. When it comes to managing this incredible budget. Now, not too far from $1 billion. All the things that, as the leader of the city, you're going to have some degree of knowledge about. So talk to us about your skill set that is relevant to the mayor's office.
Yeah, well, I love this question, and look, now is not the time for on-the-job training. Now is not the time for inexperienced leadership. I've been through 2 state budgets. Those are big bucks. I did not serve on appropriations, but you have to know a little bit about a lot when it comes to that process. And so going through 2 state budgets, going through 8 city council budgets, and slicing and dicing and finding out, I oftentimes say it's like a deck of cards, and if you take a card out, the budget starts to, and so you have to replace where you're putting the funding in there. And so for us as city council, a lot of times we got the crumbs, same as the legislature, we got the crumbs, there's a few million bucks here left over that you could put into special projects. But you had to be creative in making sure that we have to have a balanced budget. The state Constitution requires that there's a charter amendment coming here soon that will also require that the city can only have a budget based on projected revenue. In the past, that was the way we always did it, but it wasn't in our Constitution, and that is so important and should make you all feel better knowing that that is in place, that you can't just
The charter.
That's the charter, yes. And so I've been through 2 state budgets, 8 city budgets. I owned my own business, and I knew what it was like pinching pennies and making sure that our budget met, and we were able to grow our business for that on a personal side, as well as now representing a statewide organization from every nook and cranny of this state. The decisions that I make and the advocacy that I do for my job in DC and in Pierre impacts a lot of people in the state. There are over 80,000 employees in the automotive and trucking space. And so the decisions that I make with influence and change, not just on a fiscal, but on a policy front, is so important. And so understanding policy is a huge role in building the mayor's office out as well. And so that's something that it excites me too. I like to roll my sleeves up and get into the policy nitty gritty. But that's what's so important as well. So the next mayor will have some challenges working with our legislature. We know that our relationships.
And we're going to touch on that in just a moment.
I like to get ahead of the ball, I'm sorry.
Let's talk about vision.
Yeah.
At the end of your first term, it would be 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Give us your overall vision for what this city will look like vitality, culture. What do you want to accomplish in 4 years?
Yeah.
High level.
Yes, high level. Well, I will tell you that Sioux Falls, while things are going really well, we do have some challenges. And I really, really think that for my vision is really going to be tackling the new prison that's coming and the recidivism. Public safety starts with prevention. And so we have some work to do to making sure that
We'll
people...
drill down that in a moment.
Okay.
Give us at a high level, what's
Okay.
your vision for the city of Sioux Falls?
Well, it's really one that is a safe city, a connected city, that we're forward thinking when it comes to infrastructure. We just had the new wastewater facility. Can't grow your businesses, you can't expand into new housing if you don't have just really the basics, and that's infrastructure. For me as well, something that's really important as we talk about housing and my vision for the first year is removing some of that red tape. Housing just keeps getting more and more expensive, and sometimes we like to pass ordinances and laws that make us feel like we're safe, and we're just adding another $1,800 to the price of a new home. And so for me, it's driving down on those three key things of public safety, smart growth, and infrastructure, with then removing that red tape and making sure government is really here to serve you and be your customer service rep.
Okay, so let's start drilling down. Let's start with the prison.
Sure.
All right, so we're going to build a prison that's probably going to be around for another 100 years.
Yeah.
Right? And we have the issue in this community right now is that parolees largely are released.
Yep,
You know,
here,
Here's $50 in the door.
and a bus pass sometimes.
Good luck.
Yep.
So how will you, as leader of the city, address this recidivism issue, this parolee issue? It's a big deal.
I mean, I could talk for 40 minutes on this one
Just give us
topic,
2
so
minutes.
I won't, I promise you. But public safety starts with prevention, it really does. And so we can't keep sending these men to prison and expect different results when we're not doing anything for them in there. And I know sometimes I catch a little flack of saying, well, why do you care so much about the prisoners? Well, it's not just about the prisoners, it's about the victims. I don't want, if you've been a victim of a crime, I want you to know that you're going to be safe, that Joe Blow getting out of the prison is not going to come re-victimize you. I want you, I want this person to also have a job and be a member of society, but society is not setting them up for success. It's just not. The recidivism is just a vicious cycle over and over.
How will you make a difference as mayor?
So here's a couple things that are really important to me. I sat down with FOP, which is the Fraternal Order of Police. They need reform. So I want to dive in with FOP and law enforcement, our Attorney General, and sit down and talk about how we can have some reform that helps law enforcement. There's an issue with within DOC. I will say that the people are getting Department of Corrections. I'm sorry. People are getting out too early. They're maybe on parole, and then they just they're parole absconders. They keep doing the same thing over and over. And so we know that there are programs that work. I've witnessed it. I've been in the prison with some different groups, and these programs are working to making sure that they're never going back there again. And so we have to reinvest in the people. It's costing $40,000 a year when we're having people up on the Hill. We also know
the cost per prisoner per year at the state penitentiary is $40,000.
About $40,000 is what I'm being
And that
told.
doesn't include the capital investment in a new prison.
Correct. So one of the things that we know that's really important to me is that we can't always operate in silos. I want to work with the school district. We know that if someone is not reading to 3rd grade at literacy, that they more than likely have issues down the road. They might end up finding themselves in the system. And so I've recently talked with a couple people and they are starting a mentorship program with sitting down and reading to kiddos. My kids went to All City. I got to read in the hallway to kids every single week. It was an awesome experience. Not all parents can do that. You know what? I have 20 minutes a week. If I can go down to one of these schools and you just read a book to me, that is how we are going to start changing the future of this. And so you're going to start hearing more about a program that's going to be released with some collaboration in that. And so,
are there any programs that you think should occur in the prison, or
Yes.
or any programs that you would support regarding parolees
Yeah.
in the city of Sioux Falls to help with recidivism?
Yeah, so,
And what would those be?
there's, right now, I think, don't quote me if I say this wrong, I apologize, Dawn Marie, she runs a program in the prison called, I think it's Unified Judicial Council. I sat in a maximum security prison with 18 people around a table, 5 women, and they're talking about ways to make the prison better. And afterwards, it was really, they had to run by Robert's Rule of Orders, they had a chair, vice chair, and afterwards I talked to one of the guys and I said, he asked me some questions about what things looked like on the outside, and we were talking about it, and he says, well, I'm a lifer, I'm never getting out. And I said, oh man, I said, why are you involved in this? Why do you care? And he goes, of the 18 people that were in this room, 15 are lifers, only 3 are getting out. And I said, why do you care? Why do you care? He goes, because I care about the 3 that aren't getting out. I don't ever want to see you again. I don't ever want to see you again back here. And I don't want those families that have been on the receiving end of a crime to ever have to be scared of you. I want your family to know that you're coming home and that you're going to provide for your kids. They're reinvesting in themselves, and these programs are working. We just need to get the state to catch up a little bit. There's a new grant that just came out that offers some re-entry into the community. There's Leaders of Tomorrow. There are programs that are working. I've witnessed it. I've done side-by-sides. I've seen the great work that things are happening, but the root of it all boils down to addiction. Almost every single person has some sort of addiction issue, and so we have to be getting them the resources that they need.
So what do we do as a
Yep.
community to address
Yep.
the problems
So right now
with
we have,
alcohol and drug addiction?
yeah, right now we have the link. So 7-8 years ago when I was on the council, I got to go do some site visits on triage to what, right? So when people are coming in, how are we getting you a warm handoff to that service that you need? So the low-hanging fruit really was taking from the jail, the drunk tank, the sobering center, right? So instead of sending you to jail, you shouldn't be in jail, you need to sober up, you need to get some help. How can we get you the services? So the intent with the link is to do that. Now, I also just did last week a side-by-side with Midwest Street Medicine. Oh my gosh, the work that these people are doing and the heart of these folks that are serving our community. I got to sit side by side by every single one of these people that just got out of prison. One of the gals that I sat down next to, she was pretty close to losing her job because she didn't have steel-toed boots. Things that maybe are easy for us. So for her falling off the deep end was between her and steel-toed boots. That's it. You know what? I brought her a pair of steel-toed boots. And I thought, if this is the one thing that makes you not go down addiction, I believe in you. And I said to her when I met with her, I said, you know what, let's do breakfast. She's like, really? Really? Can we do breakfast? And I said, yes. And so it's that mentorship. Sure, it's fun to mentor kids. We need to be doing that too. But these folks that are getting out need people to invest in them so they don't fall off the deep end again. And so things are working. Street Medicine, they got a huge grant from the opioid settlement here. And so they get to continue their work. I think we have some work to do on the link. I think there's some challenges right there with that, and they're looking at revamping some of that. And it starts with prevention. It really does.
So let's stay on the same track, public safety.
Yep.
So what changes, if any, would you make to policing, to fire and rescue, to emergency medical services, or community safety? I mean, would you increase personnel? Would you change the emphasis? What do you want to achieve in the next 4 years?
As I sat down with the guys a few weeks ago with the law enforcement officers, and I said, they said we feel valued in Sioux Falls. We really do feel valued. We are a priority. 40% of our city's budget goes to law enforcement, and so they feel that, and they're super grateful of it. Their frustration comes from those parole absconders, the people that they keep arresting over and over and over. And so I think that we've done a good job with, on my time on the council, I worked on the Metro 911 board where we got the public safety center done. I got to vote on it. I got to follow behind Councilor Kiley, who really led on making that law enforcement training facility happen here. So what that did is it allowed us to train our officers right here in Sioux Falls instead of sending them to Pierre. We'd have to wait. They might have 6 openings and we could send 2. We've got 12 people that we need to get through. And so it was through that collaboration with the AG that we're able to train the officers right here and get them on the streets and get them out right away. And so that's important. When I was on the council too, one of the things that was really important for me was we were taking, the city's cut in quadrants, so there's 4 spots, and so we were taking officers off of their duty to work special events instead of paying them overtime. And so myself, I sponsored an appropriation that paid the law enforcement officers overtime, and we kept fully forced in our city. It was important to do that. And they didn't have to work on, did I shut my mic off? I might have.
No.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Is it on? Am I on?
No.
No.
I don't know what I did. I talk with my hands too much. I can talk really loud. So what, I'll talk loud. I've got,
We're on Facebook, please.
I've got boys.
You have another, have a handheld mic.
Test, 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 test.
Do you have a handheld mic?
And this is the Facebook mic.
Okay.
But I'll talk loud. I've got boys. I'm a mom. I can talk louder. So one of the things that I was proud of doing was making sure that our law enforcement was fully forced and we were paying them the overtime that they deserve.
So are we
And
properly staffed in police and fire?
Yes,
and
we're
citizen?
staying, so you're always a little behind because of retirements, and sometimes, look, if you put 12 through a course, all 12 are probably not gonna make it. It might not be for them, and that's okay, because we want the people that are in law enforcement and fire, that are the most qualified and trained. We just don't want warm bodies out there. That's not good for anybody. And so we're staying ahead of the curve, but there's always retirements, and so we have to be mindful of that.
But do you believe that we are sufficiently staffed right now?
I do.
And over the next 4 years,
Yeah.
we would maintain at this current level?
I think we will, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna just have a couple more questions, and I wanna get your questions. So you might start jotting down, if I haven't covered a topic that you're curious about, jot your questions on a card, please, and raise your hand, and we'll pick up the card and shift from my questions to yours, all right? So we can cover everything that's maybe on your minds. But let me ask you about, are there any signature initiatives, Christine, that you envision? I mean, I think about Mayor Paul, what he often cites as his Sioux 52, his community-wide mentoring program, and what that, cites that as one of his proudest accomplishments. Are there some signature initiatives that you think will?
Got it. There we go.
This one, mine's not working either.
Nope.
All right.
It wasn't my fault then.
No. It was probably my fault.
Let the record reflect, that was not my fault.
Now can you hear us?
Yeah, that's better, okay,
Can you hear
good.
us for the last couple of minutes?
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Everybody keeping up?
Yes. So as far as initiatives, I appreciate the mentorship initiative that's in place, and I think that's important that we keep that going forward. Sometimes it's not always about doing new things, but it's about driving down and making sure that the things that we are doing makes the most sense. One of the biggest complaints that I've been getting as I've continued to talk to different industries is that fix the process. So what I'm talking about is sometimes when you are a home builder or a developer and you go through the process, we operate in silos and they're jumping around from place to place to place, and anytime there's a delay, it's time. My father always taught me too, because we didn't have a lot of money sometimes, but we had time, so time is money, right? That is what we had. And so we need to fix the process on some of these items. And so while it might not be super exciting to some people, I think it's really important that we drive down those processes to make sure that they're working the best for industry. Government cannot be everybody's everything, and we don't always do it the best. And so it's making sure that we have those people in place that do things well, and that those processes are working for you, the citizens.
We're going to shift right to some of your questions, and you want to know about growth and economic development and plans downtown and everything else. So here's what's going on in town. In addition to the $1 billion in building permits that we have each year, we know Smithfield is moving and building a new facility, over $1 billion facility. That opens up the Sanford district, 130 acres at the current Smithfield site. There's the Riverline district, 9 acres, and the viaduct project, possibility of another convention center down there. And then one of the questions here is, hey, what about the completion of the central ramp, the most expensive parking ramp in Sioux Falls? There's not been fully, potential has not been fully realized. So these questions, okay, what about the parking ramp downtown? What about Riverline district and the building of a new convention center? And maybe you just talk also about what is your position on building out and developing the Sanford district and also what we're doing with Smithfield.
Okay, so I'm going to touch on the parking ramp because I just want to explain that a little bit with the parking ramp. So our parking in Sioux Falls that is city-owned is an enterprise fund. So what that means is it's run as a business. So there are no tax dollars being spent on that parking ramp. It is only enterprise funds. So every time you park downtown or park in a parking ramp, those dollars are what pay the bond on that parking ramp. Now, can we do better? Absolutely. There's been so much development that I don't think that particular project has been made a priority, that we need to look at what is it going to take to recruit someone to build on that. It was built to be able to be built up with a hotel or apartments with some commercial on the front. Like I said, there's so much new land from the Sioux Steel District that all of that, it's very expensive to build on, so it's kind of just been sitting there. It's really going to take the right developer to come in and do that. And so while, yes, it's sitting and it's not done yet, what I want to assure you is that your tax dollars are not going to that. It's enterprise funds. We did pass a resolution that ensured that taxpayer dollars could not backfill that as well. So just want to clear the air on that one. As far as
Riverline. Riverline, just so you know, it's the area, you may notice, the old Sears store.
Sears store.
Yep.
Okay,
So Riverline, Smithfield, and all of that is a little bit commingled, so bear with me. I know you like to keep me on task. So when Jack asked me the question earlier about taking an unpopular position on something, 4 years ago I led an initiative that was very unpopular. I was on the losing side 70-30, and that was the Holstone election where they were going to build a new meatpacking plant in Sioux Falls. What happened with that is the voters ultimately said, yes, we think those belong in the city. And so I led that initiative as the president of South Dakota Trucking Association, and you might go, that's really weird. Well, all of the ag groups got together. My guys deliver all the hogs. And so it made sense for me to lead on that particular issue. Had we lost that issue, Smithfield would not be able to relocate where it is today. It would have been out in the boondocks, which meant it probably would have gone somewhere else because they use a lot of water and they have to be close enough to the infrastructure. And so had we not been able to do that, the Smithfield wouldn't have been able to happen. And so I think that's a really important part of the conversation. Now, Smithfield, moving, opening up all those acres, the old Sears Riverline. The Riverline task force met to look at doing a convention space. Now, I think we probably need one. I travel a lot for my work, and I see the need for that convention space. Now, here's the game changer. With Smithfield opening up, is the Riverline the best location for?
With the current Smithfield site opening up.
Correct. With the current Smithfield site opening up in 4 to 5 years, does it make sense for us to put a convention space on that Riverline area? I'm not sure it does. It's really a game changer in the conversation of all of that. But what I think is important is to making sure that those projects all kind of work together. we have an incredible opportunity. I mean, it's a once in a generational, once in a lifetime of development. So I'm excited to see what's gonna come. You know, as we talked about, there'll probably be 3 or 4 years until there's even a shovel in the ground, to be honest. So we've got time, and we've got time to get this right. And so I've been talking to a few different leaders throughout Sioux Falls and talking about, let's develop a process that includes every single one of you. It may not even be done in my lifetime, but how can we leave it great for the next generations to come? And in making sure that we're talking to all of you, as well as those 20-somethings and everything in between. And so we've been spitballing kind of a process in place of what that could look like, how we can dream together, and making sure that we get that process and that project done right.
So here is a question about process
Yeah.
with Smithfield, with the new site. Is the deal with Smithfield complete? Some stories make it sound like the neighbors to the new Smithfield were not included in the discussions and decision in moving Smithfield. Were they included? How would you, or how have you facilitated those discussions?
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on here.
Is this one dead too? No.
Hello? Oh, I'm back on. I swear I didn't touch it. So there's 13 property owners next to the new Foundation Park Smithfield area, the new location where Smithfield is going in. I know there's some frustration with the Crooks community, as well as those folks that own homes and acreages in that area. I certainly can understand that. Foundation Park had been rezoned 10 years ago. So this project had been in the works for a very, very, not maybe this project, but the development of Foundation Park had been in the process of being an industrial site. So there was something going to go in there at one point. I think where there were some signs up for the rezone, all of that, I don't know if there were any letters or anything of that nature. I wasn't privy to those particular conversations. But I think when we talk about that process, we need to talk about how we can do it better, so we don't feel like we're doing something to you, that we're including you in the process. Now, I will tell you that the city council did act, and they did create higher berms, more trees. And I know right now, all we can compare the new project to is what we know today. And if you catch the wind out of the wrong direction, it doesn't always smell great. This new facility, I am telling you, is state of the art. When I worked with the other project, it's scary because we don't know yet, but it is going to be state of the art. You might smell ham smoking. Beyond that, virtually there should be no smell, which is really exciting to think of what is there today and what could be there tomorrow. As far as the process, I think it's really important that we continue to meet with those neighbors. I know the city did some open houses in Crooks. They did a few other things. The process seemed fast, and I can certainly empathize with that.
Next question involves really public works. You know, this specific question is about snow plowing, but maybe you can address what your feelings about the current level of services in the city, as well as how are we doing with our roads, streets, bridges, water, sewer, maybe even the Sioux Falls Regional Airport. But I will first ask the specific question, and that is, this question is about discrepancies in the way that we plow snow in the city. The city plows snow like it always has, meaning those of us on the edge of the city get plowed last. Any thoughts on how to address this discrepancy in service level?
Well, I think what's important is that they start with the arterial streets, so the emergency routes, making sure if we need to get an ambulance to someone, that those the main drags, if you will, are plowed first. There is a science and a method to it, if you will. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I know the whole process with that, but I'm interested in sitting down and asking Mark Cotter further how that works and if the process can be different. Because if you don't speak up and don't tell us, we can't change what we don't know. And so it's important for us to, you know, take your input and find out if we can make it better. I will tell you, you know, the use of the snow gates and things like that, sometimes they're not used if the snow is too heavy, and there's some reasons where it can break those gates. And so while yes, the city is supposed to use those snow gates, majority of the time, there's just sometimes the snow is just too darn heavy and it can ruin the equipment.
So let's look at Public Works overall. How are we doing in terms of paving our streets, maintaining our bridges, upgrading as we need to, making sure that our sewer capacity is appropriate? And, you know, I know the city of Sioux Falls does not own Sioux Falls Regional Airport, but last I checked, the mayor appoints the board for the Sioux Falls Regional Airport. What's the state of our infrastructure? Maybe that's a better question.
So we should be all very, very lucky. If you've not met Mark Cotter, I'm telling you, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. Our kids went to school together at Old City, and so I had the privilege of getting to know him even on a different level as our kids went to school together. He is dynamite. He is very forward-thinking. He's very planning. Our city is about 84 square miles. And so to manage that, the infrastructure from everything on top to the ground and below is a huge, huge job. And frankly, if I'm nervous about anything of being the next mayor, is when and if he's going to retire, because that would be a tough thing. So we do a great job. We've Lewis and Clark. That's where we're very forward thinking. We should have water for
we're talking about a clean water system.
Clean water system. We should have water for about the next 65 years. With that, maybe even a little bit longer.
So this is a pipeline that takes water from from the wells adjacent to the Missouri River.
Yep. And so we invested in that early on, and so it's that forward thinking and looking beyond our nose, looking way far out. And sometimes it's not always fun to have to, or exciting to think we have to invest all this money in it, but it's so important for us to be planning when it comes to infrastructure. And so the water, we're about 65 years out planning for that. There's another, the state did just fund, it's called Dakota Main Stem. And so that's a project that I want to make sure that we're continuing to work on because that's going to identify that next water source for the next 100 years. And you can't wait until you're 62 to go, oh, we got 3 years left, what should we do? No, you have to be planning. We're 65, good now, something changes. We need to be planning for the next 100. Our roads, boy, driving here today, I'm telling you, I'm, zigzagging all over the road. The roads are in tough shape right now, but they usually are after the winter. And so as the asphalt warms up, you'll start seeing people out filling those potholes and getting our roads smooth. In regards to the airport, so like I said, I travel quite a bit for my job as president of the South Dakota Auto Dealers and Truckers Association. And in that, I was flying for a conference, and I sat by somebody and I said, oh, you're from Sioux Falls, I'm running for mayor, I wanted to say. And I said, hey, are you from Sioux Falls? And they're like, no, Aberdeen. And I said, oh, where are you heading off to? Well, Tahoe. I said, oh, well, when did you come down? Well, we came 2 days ago because we stopped at Costco, we stopped at Sam's Club, we had 2 nights of hotel, and we parked at the parking ramp. And then on the way home, we're gonna go stay with our daughter who lives in Pierre or somewhere on the kind of zigzag home. And I thought, if that's not economic development, I don't know what is, right? I remember when I first moved here in my 20s, we drove to Omaha to fly out because you couldn't get flights out of here that were, less than your kidney. Or we drove to Minnesota. And so we don't have to do that anymore. And now people are driving here, but there's challenges that come with that too. And so it's important to recognize the more people that you bring in, sometimes there's challenges with that. But the state did just do a low interest loan. The city council just put some funds in towards to get that next gate level out.
It's a $120 million project.
It is, and it's gonna bring some extra flights. And people live here and work remote. So, I talked a little bit about my family. My fiance, Jason, is from Kentucky, and he moved here. He runs the Kentucky Auto Dealers Association, and he lives in Sioux Falls. And so he flies back a week a month to be able to be in the office. And so he can't get there direct, but he can get there with just a hop, skip, and a jump, and he gets there pretty quick, and it works for us. The one thing, if you'll give me one little thing, what I love is when he moved here, we were going over our finances, and he's like, there's extra money in my bank account, and I said, what? Well, great, let's why? And like, this is great, and he's like, I don't understand why my deposit was so much higher from work this time. And so he switched his residency to South Dakota because he lives here full time, and Kentucky has an income tax. And I said, you can just take that extra amount and just put it right into my account if you like. He didn't do that. However, that's the great place here, And so for me, it's been so fun having this new transplant into South Dakota and showing him all the things I love about Sioux Falls, getting to take him to all the restaurants and getting to show him why I've chosen Sioux Falls to be my home.
Let's quickly get through a couple more of these questions. Are there any more that you want to pass up? Please give them to Greg, and we'll try to get them all your questions. How are you planning to pay for the helping of the prisoners? So in other words, these programs to address recidivism, maybe even to address alcohol and drug addiction and abuse. What is the city's investment going to be in that, Christine, under your administration?
This generally falls on the county, and I don't want to sound like I'm punting, right? But it generally falls under the responsibility of the county. However, where do they live? They live in Sioux Falls, so it is our problem. And so it really boils down to collaboration with our school district, our county, the city, and the state. I know there was some disappointment that there was a program that wasn't funded this last legislative session. The recidivism task force is continuing to work and do some work. I don't like sitting on the sidelines, and so should we win this race, if I'm not welcome to that, I will make sure to find a way to be there, to have a seat at the table, because we have to make those adjustments. There are some grants available too. I was just talking to a friend over the weekend who sent me this grant program and says, do you know if the city's applying for this? Well, it's really one that maybe the county should apply for or the state applies for. But that moment, I went, why are we pointing at each other and nobody knows what we should do, and should the state apply and should this apply? And I know I'm still an outsider, so I don't want to be too critical because I don't have all the answers and I'm not privy to those conversations, but this grant would be so helpful, up to $900,000 that would help with re-entry into the community. Why aren't we applying for that? And we very may well be. I'm still trying to respectfully find information.
Next question calls our attention to a crisis or an issue in this community regarding affordable child care. Does the city have any role in correcting the child care issue here?
Well, you heard me say it earlier, government can't be everybody's everything. I have 3 boys, and I chose to work for our small business and left my state job to be able to work our small business and care for them at the same time. Not everybody can do that, but we made some sacrifices and some changes for my family. And I don't know that it is the role of the government. There was a study done recently for the city council that was done. The business community wasn't really sure if they wanted to step up. Now, what I will tell you, though, is that the city council did invest in the child care program at Southeast Tech, Southeast College. And so that we haven't seen the fruits of the labor, so to speak, at that point yet.
You mean providing child care for the students?
No, for providing scholarships for people that go into that field. So when they get out, they can start their own business in that. I think we need to look at regulations, making sure there's not a barrier to starting your own daycare or child care facility. And then also there are a couple federal programs that just started within the last couple of years as well. And so those things take time, and we just haven't seen really any meaningful impact of those yet, but I think we do need to continue to give a little bit of time. And I know that our business community is certainly paying attention trying to see where they can step in and help as well. What I will say is, if that is something that the city council decides to fund, or if the city does, it comes at a cost. So what do we want to give up to be able to do that? And that's the important question.
Christine, I'd like your assessment of our relationship with the South Dakota State Legislature, perhaps the rural areas of the state, our relationship to the governor, although that may be changing. Is it us versus them situation, or do you think that we are one state?
Well, look, there's certainly challenges with the legislature, and there's certainly challenges with legislators that represent Sioux Falls that maybe haven't always been on Team Sioux Falls. When Sioux Falls does well, the rest of the state does well. And that's really, really important that we keep reminding people, but we do it in a respectful way. I think for me, what my administration would look like is a more regular meeting with our legislators. I love, like, one of my, there's haters all the time on social media and people that always have opinions. And I'll message them and say, hey, you busy Saturday? You want to sit down and have some coffee? It's so amazing how people talk to you after you've removed the computer screens and sat down and find out, gosh, we kind of do like a lot of the same things. I think we need to do that with our legislature. I think we need to have a more direct plan of sitting down, so we're not just saying, hey, we need this program and vote yes, and then when you don't, we're going to be angry. We can't do that. We have to build the relationships. We have to build the trust. We have to build the message and why these programs matter so we can get them to the finish line.
Christine, you would take office with a great deal of political capital, but with limited resources.
Yeah.
Where will you start? What are going to be your top 3, 4 priorities in year number 1, and what might you want to push off to later in your term? What are the top priorities, the things you're going to tackle first?
Well, of course, public safety. I'm going to keep talking about that and wanting to do that. 2 is meeting regularly with our legislators. I think it's so important for us to continue to have those conversations and collaboration. And then, some of the behind the scenes things that maybe most of you wouldn't even see, but challenging each of the directors in the departments to look at cost savings as well as removing some red tape. I think those things are really important straight out of the gate, but I also think it's important to be nimble and being able to pivot and change. You just don't know when the next derecho is going to come through or the next flood. And so you have to be nimble and quick in your leadership, but have a plan of maybe not just 3, but 6 items that we're going to focus on over the next 9 to 12 months. Straight out of the gate, I'm telling you, my hands will be very, very busy hiring 3 directors, building that process and plan for what Smithfield could look like, as well as, legislative relationships and public safety.
It's a tough job. It's a really tough job. Paul Tenaiken will tell you it turned out to be much tougher than he imagined 8 years ago. Yeah. I heard him once say he was emotionally exhausted. He considered whether he'd even run for his second term. You're going to be faced with criticism, negativity, and if Paul Tenaiken and Governor Noem, we know what that relationship was like. We have some insight into that. How are you going to stay fit and healthy and energized, and so you're ready for that call at 3 o'clock in the morning that a tornado just touched down, or is that an explosion at the waste treatment plant, whatever? How are you going to maintain your balance in life and your own, I'll say your own mental well-being?
Yeah. I appreciate this question a lot because I decided to run for mayor in March. It would have been a year ago, quietly built some support in a team and announced in July. Through that time, I'm working full-time. I'm working 40 hours a week full-time. I have 3 boys that play many sports, that travel and are active. I have my family. I am running a full-time campaign. So being able to go to my board and for automotive and trucking and say, hey, I'm looking at doing this. Would you allow me to continue to keep my job? I'm not independently wealthy where I could just quit my job and not have anything to fall back on. And so they said yes. Not all employers would allow you to do that. And I think that speaks to my character and what I've been able to do in my 5 years as the president of these two associations. And so I'm not a huge fitness person. I love to go on walks. I do play soccer. I eat pretty clean. I do have my unwind time. Jason and I have, after our events and our things, we have kind of a tradition of us sitting across each other, and we have this just mental breakdown of unwinding after our convention or after a meeting. And it's so helpful for us, and it just really levels us both out, and we found that to be really helpful for us. Look, I signed up for this. I know what I'm getting myself into. It's not easy. It's not easy running for office, but it's important. It's important for the leadership and for the future of our community. And so I've prepared myself physically, mentally. I've got an incredible employer who is supporting my efforts. I have 3 amazing children who, I don't know what chokes you up more than this, but hearing your 21-year-old overhear your 21-year-old at our event we had last week saying, "My mom's killing it. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of my mom." You know what? You've made it when you hear your kids say, "I'm proud of you." And so it's been a really exciting time. I'm prepared, I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and get to work.
The voters of Sioux Falls have a choice of 5 people. You're not the only qualified person for the mayor's position. I'll go out on a limb on that one. What is it, Christine, and this can be your closing statement, what is it that distinguishes you, sets you apart from your 4 competitors?
Yeah. Well, I'll just...
Yeah, it's good.
Is that? Hello?
Yeah, I think if you
Okay.
speak to that.
There we go. I'll reiterate what I just really said. All of that rings true to the answer of this question as well, of being able to own and operate my business, being able to build the relationships legislatively as well with the city council, being able to wear both hats and knowing what it's like, having gone through 10 different budget cycles between the state and city, serving on additional boards in our community and statewide. All of those things have prepared me for that. In working in a collaborative nature, I will not sit here and tell you I have the answer to everything. I don't, but I can build a darn good team to making sure that we're moving Sioux Falls forward. I'm ready to roll my sleeves up, and I'm ready to get to work for you.
Next week, we will hear from David Sakaitis at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. We encourage you to come back for that, or if you're watching on Facebook, to tune in next Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and then we will follow up on subsequent Tuesdays with Greg Jamieson and Jamie Smith. Running for public office is not for the faint of heart. This is difficult work, and it's important work, and we are incredibly fortunate in this community that we have so many quality individuals that are running for public office. So thank you for sitting today and fielding our questions, and thank you for your commitment to public service.
Thank you, and thank you all for tuning in and for being here. I'll hang around a while. If any of you would like to talk further, I'm happy to do so. Thank you.